Yo, what's up guys? Mistweaver here. Just thought I'd make a video talking about Mythic Plus. So I've been getting a lot of questions about Mythic Plus, like does the build work in Mythic Plus? What kind of things do you do differently? So first thing I want to preference is I am not a Mythic Plus professional. That being said, I think I have a decent IO. It's like 2400 or something. Um, I do like 14 to 20 keys pretty regularly. Um, at a regular interval. And personally, I think I have some different opinions from other people, and from the numbers I've seen other people do, I'm actually not too impressed with what they're pulling off. Um, I think try as hard as we might, we're not gonna really ever do that much DPS as a monk personally. Um, I typically average around 15 to 20k DPS while pretty much trying to do no damage at all. And so that's good enough for me, honestly. If you want to do more than that, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. You're going to have to try to make some sacrifices somewhere else. But let's kind of go over it. So this is my personal theory of how I think you should do Mythic Plus, and a lot of it revolves around what kind of like essence you're using, right? So for Mythic Plus, I'd probably run something similar to this during certain weeks. This is a good setup to counter like Necrotic, right? So these two. So interestingly enough, Artifice of Time is actually pretty good in dungeons. It has a pretty high uptime. You usually see it on yourself most of the time, assuming there's anything to heal in a trash pack. And obviously, we want haste, right? The thing is, you still want to wear your haste set from raid because the build very much does work. And in my opinion, it's the best route to go. Like it's the best way. I'm not okay. So here's the huge difference. I am not a fan of conflict and strife major in the slightest. Um, I think it's too much mana. It's 25% of your mana pool. The whole idea of running conflict and strife major is to do a big pool. So unless you're with a tank who's going to be pulling big, it's really not worth it ever. And so I assume most of you guys are just kind of like me. You're maybe running with a couple of friends and you're plugging, but for the most part, tanks are just going to kind of go slow and steady. They have a route. They're not going to change it just because you took conflict and strife major, right? Uh, and if you run conflict and strife major, this is going to make you drink a lot for no reason. And it also goes against the build, right? So again, we all know the build is you want a Rising Sun kick on cooldown and then be blackout kicking and tiger palming to reset the cooldown as much as possible. Well, when you conflict in strife and there's more than like 4 or 5 ads, which is the reason why you'd use it, all you want to do really is spinning crane kick. So there is a world where conflict in strife is kind of OP, and I'll show you that right now. So if you ever do want to do damage, what you actually want to get is Sunrise Technique Azurite traits, right? And so what you do, and it actually works really well with our build, is you put this debuff on as many things as possible, right? So you sort of tap target Rising Sun kicks, and then it hits each time you do your AoE, right? So your AoE hits 4 times each time you press it. Where's the button? Spinning Crank Kick. So Spinning Crank Kick will hit essentially 4 times in 1 second, right? Or however fast your GCD is, right? You can get the GCD all the way down to 0.75 seconds. So, if you get 3 of these debuffs out, you'd be surprised how much DPS you guys can pull off. Especially if you're triple stack Sunrise Technique. I mean, if you just think about it, right? So it does 1200 each time it hits, right? If you triple stack that, that's 3600 or basically almost 4k. 4k each damage instance based off an ability, right? So that would be 16,000 damage per target affected with a debuff per second. Um, when you spinning crane kick, right? So if you're 3 target cleaving, uh, that's like 50k DPS right there from just your Azurite alone. This is kind of a cheese that I've held on to and I haven't really told people about. But yeah, that's how, if I want to do a lot of AoE damage, I will. It's not going to be because of Conflict and Strife Major. Yeah, I think Conflict and Strife Major is interesting, but it makes you lose too much downtime by drinking. And my whole plan is to never drink, right? So typically this is like my default setup. I usually run Memory of Lucid Dreams Major. I'm a huge fan of Well Essence with Vitality Conduit. So this is like what I would normally run right here. Vitality Conduit, Well Essence, Memory Lucid Dreams, and then I also sometimes will go Ever Rising Tide too for double mana, right? So just like this is like the on healing weeks, this is my setup, right? So healing weeks is when there's any extra damage being done to the group. So, you know, either explosives, quaking, um, what's the big ones? When the ads die, they hurt you really bad. What's the other one where you guys, the whole group is just constantly ticking down? Basically, on any week where the main challenge is you actually having to heal, this is my Azrai setup. Last week when it was necrotic, I kind of went with a little bit of a more different approach. So I was a big fan of Vitality Major for a little bit because you can major the tank, and even though he has like 30, 40 necrotic stacks, um, this will essentially heal him through the last few seconds. But honestly, our tanks were pretty good about running, and you can use tools like stun or uh, the fucking bumper car thing, this thing, right, to prevent the ads from hitting your tank. So that wasn't kind of an issue. So I stopped using that altogether, honestly. But maybe in like, if your tanks aren't that good or they don't run, Vitality Conduit is pretty good. I personally think Vitality Conduit and a Well Essence, you have to have one of them. The reason being is your single target healing is a little bit rough when you're constantly kicking, because you don't want to just be spamming the tank, right? And you already have Renewing Mist up and Enveloping Mist on a target, most likely also Essence Font on the tank. So these three hots will proc Vitality Conduit non-stop, and they're also a great dispenser for the Well Essence. So the Well Essence is pretty OP because you're probably going to have 5 Renewing Mist up, or you should at all times, and those 4 other Renewing Mist, I think, did I say Enveloping? I meant Renewing Mist. Those 4 Renewing Mist will be charging up Well Essence 24/7. Basically, 60 to like 70% of your healing is going to be tank healing, right? Um, and contrary to popular belief, I don't actually believe Mistweaver's tank healing is really that great. But if you take Well Essence and Vitality Conduit, then it is. Then it's really strong because you can turn all that overhealing into actual healing. You could even take Well Essence Major, in my opinion. I think Well Essence Major is probably one of the most underrated things in the game. Its only fault is that it takes a GCD every 15 seconds away from you, which is kind of an issue. I actually think there's a lot of flexibility with the Essence system currently for 5-man content, and I feel like the Discords and stuff aren't really exploring those as much as I feel like I do. I try different things all the time, and there's a lot of things that work out for me. But the most consistent version I've found so far is this setup right here with where's it at? Where's Vitality? Yeah, this is like my default go-to. Someone says, "Hey, we need you a fuck ton of healing, and you can't go and we're never going to. Oh, so another reason why I run this, I don't drink in dungeons. I don't drink mana at all, like ever. Like I've had this same stack of seafoam coconut water forever. Like I just don't drink. And the whole point of that is because if you're playing the Rising Mist build, it's all about go go go. You can't let your hots fall off, right? Like we've chain pulled and I've kept up 15 hots for like 3 minutes straight. Swear to God, it's nuts. Like on fights where you have to do a lot of healing. Do I have anything on here? There's nothing too impressive. This is like a lower key. Sucks. Well, so I have some fights that are like on really high keys. That's like plus 19, plus 20 keys, where you have to do a lot of healing, right? And it's a lot of AoE healing. Like for example, Temple of Sethos, right? The Galvanized boss, this guy right here. Uh, where is it? Okay, yeah, this guy right here. He requires a very high amount of healing. Um, so much to where like in like a plus 19 tyrannical, you easily have to do over 110, 120k HPS. This build can do that without spending mana. I took some screenshots. Maybe I'll put them up later. Um, I did 110k HPS, and I had full mana at the end of the fight, and I hadn't cast a single spell. So that was just from pre-casting envelopings, rolling in, and I kept 5 envelopings, 5 renewing mist, and 5 essence font hots up the entire fight. And well essence and vitality conduit sorted out the differences of HP pools. And I never cast one spell. So the HPS potential with this build in 5 minutes is very much alive. And it comes from you just constantly keeping up enveloping mist and your other hots, right? And because you do so much HBS but really spread out across all your hots, you kind of need well essence and vitality conduit to fix the issue, right? This is kind of like a permanent spirit link, and this is like single target healing, right? The well stores up healing and heals people below 50%. You have to get really used to the idea and learn when it's okay to let somebody be under 50%, so the well essence can really do a lot of the heavy lifting. Like tanks kind of get a little nervous when they play with me because I'm always leaving them below 50%, but that's because the well essence is doing all the healing. And then you just to be aware of what actually is going to hit them hard, right? Typically, most tanks can live through anything at half health, but you just need to be aware of like what kind of tank you're healing and what mechanics are happening. So when it comes down to it, though, when you really have to spam, obviously you just plant your feet, make sure they have all 3 hots, soothing mist them, and just churn out Divifies, right? And hopefully you get a lot of vitality conduit procs and you don't have to spam them that hard. But yeah, again, I don't drink, so this is why I run these 2 essences. If you're completely fine drinking, then I would dump these 2 essences and potentially get a little bit more power, right? Like if you were to run Formless Void, you could even run Formless Void Major for DPS if you want. Oh, I'm not in the thing, so it won't let me switch. What's some other ones that I really like? Conflict and Strife is nice. It's just like a free 5% verse. Artifice of Time is a really nice way to speed up your group's DPS. This is going to be on your whole group pretty much always as long as you're healing. So 485 haste is nothing to scoff at. That's a lot of haste, right? I guess it turns into 405 for some reason. Weird. Yeah, so 400, either way, 400 haste, right? It's pretty solid. 8-second buff. It's obviously good for you too. It'll help you keep your hot. So you could run something like this, right? Formless Minor, Artifice of Time Minor. You could run this probably and get away with it. Or you could run Vitality Major with like Well Minor or something. That's probably what I would do. Right, like this setup would be pretty good right here, right? Maybe you just have to chug mana pots on cooldown, and this could be a really strong healing setup. Especially if you have like a paladin giving you a little bit extra mana, or you just drink a little bit between pulls, but not too long because you don't want your hots to fall off, right? Another really, really strong setup for healing, and this will kind of help make your run faster because you're giving people DPS. Same with Formless, right? Giving them free haste. But yeah, I basically just play the exact same way that I do in Raid in 5-man, and it goes great. I do a lot of healing. I feel like people never believe me when I talk about my Mythic Plus success, but I guess I can show. Yeah, see, I'm 2355. I mean, it's not a bad IO, right? But I've done some big keys, a couple underaught 20s. We timed a workshop 19. Like, I'm not claiming to be a Mythic Plus god, but the build you don't need to change any items for the build. As far as corruptions go, like changing to damage corruptions, I don't suggest it. I think if you're gonna change anything, you should change the Azerite. The problem with changing to DPS corruptions is that I feel like you lose too much power, or you lose the ability to keep your hots, right? I'm assuming you guys have haste corruptions at this point, or some cooldown, maybe some inevitable truths. If you sacrifice those, in a 5-man setting, it becomes a lot more extremely more difficult to keep up your hots, right? So like I'm still gonna be running my heal setup, which haste corruptions and whatnot, in 5-man, just so the hots are always up, right? Because the idea is we don't want to stop ever. It's very snowbally, right? Like we could easily just chain pull the entire dungeon with the HBS requirement for me being 100k. Like I could do that completely fine. In fact, I have a lot of fun doing that. Like we were when the ads were bursting, we did a what was it? a mother load, like 17 or 18, and they chain pulled so many mobs that my average HPS for the first half of it was like 100k. It was really nuts. I also wore the helmet, and this thing, Arcane Heart, was up like non-stop. It was a lot of fun because you're also doing like 10, 15, 20, 30k DPS, and then you're also doing a lot of healing, right? So the helmet is worth it if you're doing a really high key, and it's a healing week. You can actually wear your raid helmet. It's pretty cool. So, but yeah, normally I'll just wear the engineering helmet, because I don't have Steigen's guys still somehow. So yeah, I'll wear this thing. I have two different versions of the engineering helmet, by the way. One for like damage and one for healing. So ultimately, guys, it's up to you, right? You can change as much of your gear to damage as you want, but I personally like to think of it like this. I want to make all of my stuff for healing and then spend all my time doing damage, right? Because I heal by doing damage. Like all my healing will be kept up by Rising Sun Kick 24/7, right? And then if I ever have to really heavy heal, I have all the haste corruptions and all the haste gear just like from raid, and I just kind of switch into that heavy healing mode, right? But I let the HOTS do all the heavy work for me. I just kick and do passive DPS, and I mean, if personally feel like if I'm timing 19 keys, then not a problem, right? But obviously, I'm not like J. B on his paladin where he's averaging like 40, 45k DPS. So if you guys want to do that, you guys can switch over to some different gear. Like I have a DPS set just in case I do low level keys, Twilight Devastations and Infinite Stars on it. I might be mixing some of this in. We'll see. But yeah, I don't think there's any like one right way to play Mythic Plus right now. But I'm just using my raid build and it's working out great. So hope that answers any questions you guys have had about Mythic Plus, especially with the build. I can't stress enough how valuable I think Well Essence is and Vitality Conduit. I tried doing a run without those, and it just feels like I'm playing a different character. I seriously need the single target healing that much. Otherwise, you find yourself spamming and not kicking, and you never want to be in a situation where you're forced to spam heal the tank. There's no reason for that. So I would say that those are the only two mandatory ones, and then the other two spots you can either build more haste or more healing, or you can go like damage or go mana. It's your choice. Yeah. All right. I've been rambling for long enough. All right. I'll see you guys.